I did an oral tradition project on the Cowlitz Indian tribe. For the primary source, I used a book, Legends of the Cowlitz Indian Tribe by Roy Wilson, who's the honorary chief of the Cowlitz Indian. I looked for other material specifically for Cowlitz Oral Traditions, and I didn't see anything else that was in print. It was very hard to find anything specific on this, so I went to the Cowlitz Tribal Indian office and was able to get a contact number for the tribal chief, Chief Wilson, who wrote this, and I got to interview him today, and that's going to be part of this. So there's actually 2 videos to put this in perspective. So I'm going to try to keep this part short because he does a great job at answering. I asked a very specific question about putting some of his oral traditions regarding the taboo of incest in the perspective, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and you'll have the accompanying video. But I picked one story in particular on this called Urine Boy, and you'll see the number 5 is mentioned quite a bit, which is a sacred number, and that's why it's integrated into the oral tradition. And I wanted to talk about some other dynamics to this that worked well. There were several stories in here regarding incest. There were 5, and I tried to find a common theme, and I even asked Chief Wilson about this, if there was something that they used as a common theme throughout the oral tradition, specifically on the taboo topic of incest. And I didn't really get a response in that regards, but I tried to find something that was common in them. And the closest thing I found in what they used to illustrate this point, obviously they use examples of actual incest occurring, but death, oddly enough, seemed to be sort of a medium where it would either be a father faking his own death and coming back as another identity, or trying to get even more grotesque, somebody literally dead having sex with somebody. And that was the closest thing I could find. Urine Boy I picked because it seemed to be the best representation from all the stories and also from what I learned today. And I wanted to go a little bit into it now before I read the story about who the taboo of incest would apply to. And using a source here, this is a guide to the Indian tribes of the Pacific Northwest. I took some notes. This was written by Robert Rudy and John Brown. And there are 4 bands of the Cowlitz tribe. There's the upper, lower, there's the Lewis, and there's the mountain. So you have the tribe of the Cowlitz Nation, you have the 4 bands. Within each band there are several clans, and in response to answering my question, Chief Wilson said, well, what's your last name? I said, I'm Wardell. And he said, just to illustrate this, anybody that was of the Wardell clan, the incest taboo would apply to. So if you were Bear, anybody in Bear, but that would extend further than what it seems at first, because we're, as Euro-Americans, we tend to accept second cousins. That wouldn't apply in this case with the Cowlitz tribe. In fact, the Cowlitz tribe, their cultural mores were to marry outside of the clan, but more often they would even marry outside of the tribe. So Chief Wilson himself was actually he has blood from 4 different Indian tribes, and as I found out too, also from a white Baptist missionary. So it was common for them to breed outside of the tribe. So pure Cowlitz blood in that sense wasn't all that common. So that was just a little bit of background on how to put this into context as you hear this story. So this one's called Urine Boy, and it begins. Urine Boy had 5 sisters. He wore his hair in one braid. Every day he danced on a rock. One day as he danced, he saw a man running away from a dangerous being. He killed the dangerous being before it caught up with the man. Then he put the man under his braid and took him home to his sister. The same thing happened 5 times. Each time he took the man home. Each sister now had a man. The eldest girl bore her husband many children. 2 of the children fell in love with each other and ran away. Their mother followed them and found where they had camped the first night. They made a little fire. One had slept on one side of the fire, one on the other. They had gone on the next day. She followed them for 5 days, but could not catch up with them, for they could travel faster than she. At the 5th camp, she found their beds together. So that's why you ran off, she said. She took the 2 mats and rubbed them together. Then she laid them down side by side. The youth and the sister ran away to strangers and lived as man and wife. They had 1 child, a boy. The boy danced every day and sang, "My mother is also my auntie, my father is also my uncle, my mother is also my auntie." He sang this 5 times every day. His father could not make him stop and became ashamed. "Someone will find out I married my sister," he said, and so he killed the boy. Sometime later, Zwane came. They don't have any context for who Zwane is in this story, but it's just an additional character enters this story from the tribe that lives, the strangers that he mentioned he lives among. And Zwane came and stated, "No one shall marry his sister," he said to the man. "Do you see that pretty girl there?" he asked. "Go make love to her and have her for your sweetheart." Then he said to the man's wife, "Perhaps someone will fall in love with you too, some stranger whom you can marry. This is the way it shall be done. As soon as they are old enough to know better, sisters and brothers or cousins will not make love to each other," he said. "And so it is today. If a brother and sister act like lovers, it is not nice." And he mentions in here a lesson, another legend teaching children and youth about the evil of incest. One more thing I'd like to say on that. When I talked to him, he said it would be, it was a common practice to practice polygamy. So a man can have several wives, and he may have, if he could financially sustain them, he could have 10 kids with each wife, and if he had 7 wives, he could, in theory, not that this would be common, but he could have 70 kids. And none of those descendants could intermarry between each other because they would all be the same clan. And I had another note on that I wanted to mention, but that's okay. I don't want to go on without remembering what that was. So that puts it into context. And then I also want to share in one more video segments of that where I asked Chief Wilson about this taboo incest and his explanation for it. Thank you.